After my most recent video where I mapped out the entire planet of Mario except for the stuff I left out, either on accident or on purpose, I ended up getting many comments. Most of them were theories, conjecture, etc. about the locations of the Mario universe, but there were also many people who came in with some info about how the Mario universe is way more connected than I had realized. So today I've decided to make another video where 90% of the comments are correcting me by attempting to answer this question. Does Mario even have a story or continuity? Here's how this is gonna work. Our main focus is the Super Mario franchise, and series like Donkey Kong Country, Wario, and Yoshi will be mostly ignored unless they feature Mario or have small references that address the existence of potential continuity. Same goes for party game spin-offs like Mario Party, Mario Kart, Mario Tennis, etc. The RPGs are important here, but they're more connected with each other than with anything else. The biggest thing that's important here is that I will only be going off of details stated in the games themselves, nothing from interviews. There are exceptions to this, like game manuals for NES and SNES era games, and a couple interviews for the earliest games, since the arcade games didn't have manuals until they were ported to consoles. But anyway, we'll list the important story details from each main series game first, before seeing if we can string them together. Alright, let's begin at the beginning. Donkey Kong. After the release of DK Jr., which we'll address in a second, this game's ports for early game consoles started calling Jumpman and Lady by their current names, Mario and Pauline. Presumably this is the earliest adventure that Mario has as an adult. Donkey Kong Jr. Mario, and as seen in the arcade version, a second Mario, is literally keeping Donkey Kong captive, and his son DK Jr. has to save him. Looking back, we could say that the second Mario could actually just be Luigi, but we could also just ignore Mario number 2. Next up, Mario Bros. Not much to say here except that, like Donkey Kong, this game is meant to be set in New York. This is info from an interview with Miyamoto in 2009, and unless I say otherwise, all of the game manual tidbits I mention can be found on the Mario Wiki. Oh, and this is the first official appearance of Luigi too. Super Mario Bros. This is the first game that takes place in the Mushroom Kingdom, and it's the first appearance of Toads, Princess Toadstool, Bowser, and many classic enemies. This game establishes that Bowser has some sort of magic powers as he turns toads into brick blocks, stones, and, quote, horsehair plants. I take this to mean the bushes and hills in the background of levels. We're gonna ignore that Mario may or may not be killing the toads when he breaks blocks, and instead we'll move on to Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels. The biggest thing of note here is that Luigi gains his different playstyle of slipperiness here. The story in the manual is the exact same story blip as Super Mario Bros., albeit claiming that it takes place in a parallel world. Maybe it's just trying to say that the Mushroom Kingdom is a parallel world to Earth, but I'm not sure. Either way, it may just make this game non-canon, I guess. I don't know. Super Mario Bros. 2. This game was just reskinned from Doki Doki Panic, a game in Japan. Despite this, the gameplay of Mario, Luigi, Princess Toadstool, and Toad became hugely important for their characters. It established Toad to be poor at jumping and to be really fast, helped define Mario as an everyman, cemented Luigi's signature high jump, and gave Toadstool some light magic powers herself via her floating ability. Many enemies in this game also became Mario staples, despite the story of this game being declared as taking place within a dream world called Subcon. Super Mario Bros. 3. This one was long theorized to be a stage show put on by Mario and gang. Shigeru Miyamoto seems to have confirmed this in an interview, and while I'm a little skeptical of interviews, the stage play aesthetic is apparent in game, so I believe this one is true. Although it is still odd, like I guess they really are transforming and getting power-ups and defeating Goombas, and they convinced Bowser and the Koopalings in their first appearance to participate this early on in the series? Well, I'll get more into this later. Super Mario Land. This marks a major milestone. Princess Daisy and her Kingdom of Sarasaland make their first appearance. This is very important as it establishes the world of Mario to be more than just the Mushroom Kingdom. You could say that Mario 3 did that too, but since that's a stage play, I take Mario Land as being the first to fully confirm that. Super Mario World. In this game, Mario, Luigi, and Princess Toadstool go on vacation to Dinosaur Land, where the first appearance of Yoshi occurs. This aids in expanding the world again after Sarasaland and brings back many of the enemies from Mario 2 to cement them in a real world. Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins. Not much here besides the addition of Wario, who becomes a staple of the franchise. Wario is stated to be rivals with Mario from an early age, which presumably would have started between Yoshi's New Island and Donkey Kong. Speaking of Yoshi, Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island. This is where things get interesting. This game is a prequel to the entire franchise, featuring a group of Yoshis who aid Baby Mario and Baby Luigi. In addition to bringing the Shy Guys from Subcon to the real world, this game is a whole can of worms that we'll get into later, as this plot development is continued into Yoshi's Island DS and Yoshi's New Island. Super Mario 64. While it is one of the most influential games of all time, for our purposes today, Super Mario 64 mainly serves as fleshing out the world and cementing some character traits. Bowser is confirmed to still have some magical abilities, Princess Toadstool is finally called Peach, and she gets her castle, Mario gains a voice, and the Toads are cemented as being Peach's subjects. Luigi's Mansion. I'm including this as it is important for establishing Luigi as a scaredy cat, as well as introducing King Boo and Professor Egad. It also ties into the rest of its own series, as well as a couple Mario and Luigi games. Super Mario Sunshine. Like 64, Sunshine just adds to the world. Isle Delfino is established, further expanding the world. It references EGAD again to make sure its importance is solidified, and Toadsworth is introduced to the scene. It also features 5 uniquely colored Toads, who I believe eventually become the Toad Brigade in later games. Now we're going to start moving rapid fire, as the recent games are very well known and I probably don't need to recap what they add to the franchise for you. Just know this, the Galaxy games are instrumental in bringing space to the forefront, which becomes an often visited setting in both later games and spin-offs. The new Super Mario Bros. Series helps cement the Mushroom Kingdom as having many different biomes, and the first 2 games make sure to bring back Bowser Jr. and the Koopalings respectively. 3D World and Bowser's Fury create the Sprixie Kingdom, another important parallel world, although this one seems to have a more stable access point than Subcon. And finally, Super Mario Odyssey maps out nearly the entire planet for us, and I hate it. The map, not the game. It also features Mario actively pining for Peach, which was only hinted at in previous games. Hello again. Now we're getting to the hard part. Is there an established chronological order for the games akin to the Legend of Zelda timeline? Now, I am going to tell you my personal opinion first. Heck no. I don't think there is any intended timeline, and much of the lore about characters is not kept or brought up again from game to game. Sure, characters retain their traits and their general backstories, but I don't think there's a single good reason as to why Rosalina is selling Teslas now instead of traveling the universe. However, there is some consistent lore for the world itself, not so much the characters, so I'm going to at least try to string these games together into a loose timeline. Alright, where do we start? Mario and Luigi are born and delivered to their parents by a stork, or at least an attempt is made to do so, and by the end of Yoshi's Island, the Yoshis defeat Baby Bowser and Kamek and save Baby Luigi. And after the pointless detour that is Yoshi's New Island, the bros are delivered to their parents. Shockingly, their parents apparently lived in the Mushroom Kingdom, as evidenced by the Toad House that they are delivered to. Perhaps unlike the movie, Mario and Luigi knew about this place in the games, only moving to the real world to experience where their parents grew up? This is pure conjecture, but it's all I've got to work with. A short while later, Yoshi's Island DS establishes the concept of star children, with 6 babies being kidnapped due to them bearing an extraordinary amount of power. This concept hasn't been mentioned again since, but its existence is the first chronological occurrence of the importance of stars in the Mario universe. Presumably, since they are star children, Mario, Luigi, Peach, Donkey Kong, Wario, and Bowser are beings with some sort of chosen one-esque nature in the Mario universe. They are joined by a 7th star child, a green Yoshi, at the end of the game, and this Yoshi is probably the main Yoshi seen in games that feature the bros as adults: Mario World, Mario Galaxy 2, Wonder, etc. Chronologically, I suppose the next game would be Donkey Kong, followed by DK Jr., Mario Bros, and then Super Mario Bros. However, baby Donkey Kong's existence is a bit of a confusing point, but I'm literally gonna ignore that right now. Let's skip to Super Mario Bros, because just for simplicity's sake, I'm gonna assume that this is in fact the first instance of Mario and Luigi having to save Peach. And from here on out, I think the game's chronological order is pretty close to the release order. Here's the exceptions. Since Super Mario Bros. 3 is a stage play, I actually think this takes place somewhere between 3D World and Odyssey. Instead, Super Mario 3D Land takes its place. I say this because in real life, 3D Land's gameplay and aesthetics were inspired by Mario 3, except that 3D Land isn't presented as a play. Therefore, Mario 3 could be considered a play adaptation of 3D Land, taking place after it in a time where the gang could convince Bowser and the Koopalings to participate. Heck, they may have even made Mario 3 as an actual game in-universe too, judging by the green energy plant level in Paper Mario Color Splash. Again, that was entirely conjecture, but there's barely anything to suggest this. I'm just having fun at this point. Alright, let's move on and talk about the Star Festival. Despite Super Mario Galaxy's prologue establishing that the Star Festival only occurs every 100 years, it happens again in Super Mario Galaxy 2. This actually has an explanation given in Galaxy itself that I honestly never really thought about until making this video. At the end of the game, Bowser's Galaxy reactor implodes, resulting in a huge black hole that sucks in the universe itself. This leads to a scene where Rosalina tells Mario about the cycle of life in this universe, and that it never repeats itself in quite the same way. I believe, as I think many others do, that this made the Mario universe do a soft reset. This led to the Star Festival happening all over again, this time without ending in a cataclysmic event. Either way, I think that Galaxy 1 and Galaxy 2 happened back to back, with the rest of the timeline proceeding relatively in release order. I did wonder if Mario 1... I just realized that was a pun. I'm gonna say it anyway. I did wonder if Mario Wonder may have occurred earlier in the timeline, with all the visual references to Super Mario World, but it doesn't necessarily have to. I could see it being earlier and later, so I'll just keep it where it is. Alright, that's all I have for the main series, so let's talk about the other series, and this is where we begin circling back to the importance of stars. While games like Mario Galaxy, which feature Lumas, and other main series titles, which literally have stars that make you invincible, touch on the importance of stars, it's the RPGs that really give them a chance to shine. Haha pun. Anyway, Super Mario RPG is the first to refer to a Star Road, where wishes are granted. This is most likely the same place as Star Haven, Star World, Dream Depot, and more from throughout the franchise. There are also several kinds of sentient stars in each RPG series. The Star Spirits and their fellow stars in Paper Mario, the Star Sprites and the Dark Star in Mario & Luigi, and Geno in Mario RPG. Other stars are sources of power: paint stars, power moons, the sticker comet, etc. Basically, the concept of granting wishes and dreams and using stars as power is something intrinsically linked with the franchise. By the way, as I explained in the comments of my previous video, while the Paper Mario series technically happens inside a book, I still think that certain characters and locations do appear in the main world, as evidenced by the Star Spirits, Wacka, Koopa Trolls, and others appearing in non-Paper Mario games. And I honestly think that the Mario & Luigi games slot right into the main series timeline, keeping with the release order for all the games. Same goes for the Luigi's Mansion series, which actually has some time travel in the 3DS remake of the first game that is explained away with zero plot holes somehow. It's hard to explain, just go to Guigi's Mario Wiki page and you can read all about it. By the way, one last related bit of lore that appears in many of the games is all the advanced technology. Any technology in the Mario universe can usually be explained by two things: power stars or Professor Egad. Egad has figured out time travel, ghost cages, goo creatures, magical paintbrushes, and most importantly, coffee. Meanwhile, as I mentioned before, power stars and things like them are sources of power for spaceships, cities, light, and more. Smithy has even figured out how to make sentient weapons, which is a Star Trek episode waiting to happen. Also, Donkey Kong knows robotics and built a rocket by himself that doesn't use power stars at all, but we're running out of time. I've got to start getting into the last part of the video. Although, I did neglect to mention one really big game. It introduces so much lore that I don't know if I can even cover it at all in this video. That game is the funny little 2D Paper Mario game. If you've never played it and know nothing about it, please don't spoil yourself. Just start playing it, or find a no commentary playthrough online. I may make a video about it just because it's so dense. And with that, I don't really know how much more evidence there is for continuity, But I will address just one last big argument against it. For years, one family of apes has plagued the Mario universe by constantly messing up any chance of a kinda cohesive timeline. It is all Donkey Kong's fault. First, he appears in the original arcade game kidnapping Pauline. Then, he goes basically radio silent until Donkey Kong Country, when it's revealed that the original DK has now grown old and become the new character of Cranky Kong. The new Donkey Kong is the original Donkey Kong's grandson. Cool, what a nice and tidy retcon. Just kidding! What happened to Donkey Kong Jr.? Is he DK's father? If so, how the heck is he in Mario Tennis with new DK? Just kidding again, because baby Mario is in Mario Tennis, so we'll just ignore it. But wait, sometimes Cranky Kong calls Donkey Kong his son, not his grandson. What are we supposed to do with that information? That's right, baby, we ignore it! As of Donkey Kong Country Returns, it is firmly established that Cranky is indeed DK's grandfather. The end, not never the end, because Donkey Kong Bananza just had to include young Pauline. It is a lot harder to ignore a mainline Donkey Kong game than it is to ignore a sports game spin-off with one inconsistent appearance. How the heck are Cranky Kong and young Pauline existing at the same time? As of writing this sentence, I don't know, but the game comes out next week. So I'm literally gonna finish writing this portion of the video when that happens. This is so exciting, I have no idea what the answer is. I should snap my fingers so that I can do a cool editing trick that transitions seamlessly to the part where I know. I know everything. So if you don't, I suggest you skip to the end, because I'm going to spoil everything about Donkey Kong Bonanza. Everything. That's your last warning. Let's start with what we all thought was gonna happen. The second I saw that young Pauline and Cranky Kong were in the same game, I just assumed that they were throwing it all out the window. Cranky Kong mentioning rivals with overalls can literally be boiled down to him being senile. Then I saw some dialogue that DK has with Diddy and Dixie in the game, which confirms that Donkey Kong Bonanza takes place after all of the Donkey Kong Country games. This is further solidified by King K. Rool's appearance, and at this point in the game I was not thinking about the timeline at all. But then, I learned that there are random bits of dialogue where Pauline mentions that she has a grandmother. Oh my gosh, they half tried to keep the lore intact. To put it in perspective, the first retcon back in the day was that there were 2 Donkey Kongs, 1 Pauline, and 1 Mario. The first Donkey Kong was made to be the grandfather of the second Donkey Kong. We've been over this. But with that one bit of dialogue, their new explanation just has to be that Jumpman and Lady are actually separate characters from the Mario and Pauline that we thought they were. So now, there are actually 2 Donkey Kongs, 2 Marios, and 2 Paulines. In fact, Jumpman, being the character you play as in Donkey Kong, could mean that he's the character you play as in Mario Bros, which would clear up why Mario's parents live in the Mushroom Kingdom. Jumpman finds the pipe to the Mushroom Kingdom while working a job in the sewers. He settles down, he has a kid, Jumpman's kid gets married, that couple stays in the Mushroom Kingdom, and Mario is eventually delivered. As for Grandma Pauline, she may have moved to New Donk City before Jumpman even found the other world, which would mean that their descendants only met later in life, maybe around the time of Mario vs. Donkey Kong. So basically, the full beginning of the timeline is now Donkey Kong, then Mario Bros, then almost every single DK game with DK the Third, then the Yoshi's Island series, since Mario and Pauline are probably around the same age, then Donkey Kong Bonanza, and finally all the other Mario games. The only hanging thread left by this new retcon is, surprisingly, Mario Odyssey. New Donk City appears at the end of Bonanza, and it's already themed after Donkey Kong characters. Additionally, the Pauline of Mario Odyssey sure seemed to imply that she was the one kidnapped by Cranky, right? Well, there's actually some pretty solid explanations for these. First, I think that Grandma Pauline moved to New Donk City before it was Kong themed. Maybe Cranky or DK Jr. came to apologize to her, and this new friendship between humans and Kongs led to the whole city getting a little Kong themed makeover. The New Donk City Festival is called a celebration of the city's history and odyssey, and this history could refer to the original moment that led to the city flourishing. When a sentient ape kidnapped a woman. In fact, in the New Donk City of Bananza, I don't see any street signs or ads related to Kongs seen in Bananza, like Diddy or Dixie. So maybe upon becoming mayor, Pauline changed some street signs to reflect the friends she met as a child. And finally, we all originally thought that Pauline saying she was kidnapped by an ape was referring to Cranky, but there's one line from Void Kong that implies that she could have been referring to him this whole time. In his first cutscene in Bananza, Void Kong says, "Come back to me right now." This probably means that he kidnapped her prior to the events of the game. And honestly, that's the best explanation I've got, so if you don't like it, then you don't have to believe it. With that, that is finally all I have to say about whether Mario has continuity or not. Oh crap, I forgot about Baby Donkey Kong and Yoshi's Island DS. How does that work now that all the country games happened before Mario was born? I hope you all enjoyed this video. As I said, I really don't think this franchise is meant to be organized into a timeline or to be viewed as having strong continuity. I mean, Rosalina is literally selling Teslas now. But despite that, I know a lot of people like theorizing about this kind of stuff. And so this video is more so meant to get the community's thoughts flowing. Maybe you'll become more interested in learning what little lore Mario has to offer, and you may end up finding out something that solves everything. Probably not, but maybe. I don't know. But be sure to subscribe and comment below what your thoughts are on all of this. See y'all later.